Hello everyone, this is Highlander from MTG Cardsmith doing another custom Magic the Gathering card review, and today we're reviewing a card by Globert-the-martian. This guy's name is Gorvul the Tormented. Cool art, I like it. I am told that this is a prequel card to this. Huh. Okay. Weird art on this one. Okay, I'm not gonna worry. I'm not gonna worry about this prequel. Let's just look at the card at face value here. So we've got a 2-mana 1/2. Okay, pretty bad so far. It's got persist though, so good sacrifice fodder. If you're not familiar with persist, it means if this creature dies and it doesn't have a -1/-1 counter on it, you return it to the battlefield immediately and put a -1/-1 counter on it. So it's like a 1/2, and when it dies, it comes back as a 0/1, and then it dies again and it doesn't come back. Whenever Gorvul the Tormented dies, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. Okay. Okay, so I mean, this guy is pretty neat as far as, like, he's sort of just your classic sacrifice fodder, but he's legendary, which is a bit strange, but let's see what else we got here. Escape. 2 mana, exile 2 other cards from your graveyard. Okay, so you can basically... Okay, so if you're not familiar with escape, let's just read the wording on escape. Escape. Okay. Exile 4 of the cards from your graveyard. You may cast this card from your graveyard for its escape cost. Okay, so you can basically cast this guy from the graveyard for 2, plus exiling 2 other cards from your graveyard. Held captive by the sadistic demon Yenzulith, Gorvul's gift of eternal life soon became his curse. I like this card. I mean, this card definitely speaks to me. I'm a big fan of, like, sacrifice decks, and always the hard thing about a sacrifice deck isn't to find ways to sacrifice. It's like, what kind of fodder do you have, right? And this guy is sort of amazing sacrifice fodder, right? Like, you play him, you sacrifice him, he pings them for 1, he comes back, you sacrifice him again, he pings them for 1, he's dead. Next turn you can play him again and do the whole thing over. So if you really wanted to, you could basically every turn drain somebody for 2, plus whatever value you're getting out of your sacrifice, your scry or whatever. Plus, in a sacrifice deck, you're likely to have plenty of cards in your graveyard to exile to this guy. And to me, I mean, the escape cost seems reasonable. Like, exiling 2 cards is like, it's not like free, but it's also not particularly expensive. But this guy also just does little enough by himself that it feels fine. The only issue I can see with this card is it's very, very annoying as a blocker. This is kind of one of those cards where, like, if you play this against an aggro deck, this card kind of just dominates. It is legendary, so against like a mono red deck, this guy would kind of wreck face, right? I mean, you just block their biggest thing, comes back, drains them for 1. And you could do that twice, or they kill it, he still drains them for 1. But them killing it is, like, pretty bad because they're using a card on killing this guy and he's going to come back. And you can escape him. So, like, I like this guy a lot as a sacrifice fodder type card. It is very, very strong against certain decks, against the aggressive decks. So I think that's something to be a little bit careful of. I would say that if this were a real Magic card, and it was in like a standard format where there were other good black cards, this card would probably push decks like Mono Red out of the format. Essentially, unless like Mono Red had like some way to just, well, that's not necessarily true. Mono Red nowadays there's a lot of ways to exile things even in red, right? I mean, a lot of your burn exiles these days, and that gets around literally all 3 of these abilities, right? The persist, the escape. So maybe it's actually fine now that I think about it. I mean, it would be good against like a great green Stompy deck, but you know, if you've got trample, plus a lot of your creatures are going to be big enough that, you know, even if like one of your creatures get through, you know, you're not mad if they happen to block and drain you for one, right? So, yeah, I mean, I think this card feels pretty solid. I like this one actually. Again, I you know, it definitely speaks to what I like to do in Magic, and I'm a big fan of sacrifice decks. You know, him being legendary actually, so outside of Commander is probably a good thing, because like having multiples of these does seem kind of absurd. Just the amount of times he can keep coming back. But then again, like it's not like multiple instances of escape scale well with each other, right? It's more like, yeah, you know, you're not, you're, I mean, it's exactly what I said, right? Like, multiple instances of escape don't exactly stack very well. So, this guy doesn't necessarily have to be legendary, I would think. I mean, if you had, like, 2 of them on the board, and you could, like, double block something, kill it, you know, it starts getting kind of annoying, but, I don't know. I think this card would be fine if it wasn't legendary. It's also fine that it is legendary. I mean, I know most of you guys are Commander players, and this guy would be a cool commander in a sacrifice deck, right? I mean, he literally never goes away. He literally never goes away, right? It's like you sacrifice him, he persists, you sacrifice him again. You can either put him in the graveyard or in your command zone and play him for 4 again, or you can, you know, escape. He obviously gets a lot worse the more expensive he gets. But it's basically like you're just always going to have good fodder, essentially. And it's, of course, each opponent loses life, so that's obviously aimed at Commander. So, yeah, I mean, I like this card a lot. I think this card deserves... I would say this card deserves a 9 out of 10, probably. I think it's well-balanced. I think it's flavorful. I think the effect is cool. I think that the art is really cool. Yeah, I mean, I don't really have too many issues with this card. The flavor text works really well, too. So, yeah, I mean, the only thing really holding it back from a 10 is it's not, like, you know, it's not, like... it's hard to get a 10. In my book, right? A 10, you'd have to just blow my mind for a 10. And this card gets, you know, it's not blowing my mind, but I definitely look at it and I'm like, I like this card. This card's cool. I want to play with this card, right? So yeah, 9 out of 10 for Gorvul the Tormented. Well done, Globert. Yeah, hope to see some more of your creations. Thank you guys for watching.